I think we're up. Good day. Welcome to this session. Um, Thanks for joining us again. Um, my name is Ikechukwu from Six to Three Benches. So, um, what we will be considering today, what we'll be looking at today is the End Sars protests, and we're looking at it as the rebirth of Nigerian hope by the youth. So we're looking at the End Sars protests, and we're looking at it as a rebirth of Nigerian hope by the youth. So sometime in October 2020, End Sars protests happened in Nigeria, and it was phenomenal. It was life changing to say the least. It was something that um, was unplanned for the major for the large part of it. It just happened, a wave of protests um, just happened like that. And these protests were locally, they happened locally in Nigeria and also in major cities around the world. Nigerians in different cities around the world showing solidarity and support for their brothers and sisters in Nigeria. So um, it can single-handedly be called the major activism or the major event as regards activism in present-day Nigeria. Something that changed the landscape entirely, the, the changed the view about everything politically, economically, and otherwise. Nigeria is a very young nation, so um, there are lots of young people who have over the time, over the years, they've had some issues about governance. It was almost like a series of pent up anger and frustration spilling over, and the the events that were happening at the time were so fast and so impactful. So we felt it was only right to shed some light on this topic because it's a really important topic. It was one of the things that shook um, the world in October 2020. So just come along, sit down, relax, and let's get into it. I'm trusting this one is also going to be fun as always, and I'm really excited to be presenting this. Let's go to the next slide. So I'll outline or we have an approach to this topic. Um, we feel this approach or this outline will best encapsulate or it will best be a proper show or give a proper overview of what the NSAS protest was about. So we have a series of topics we feel is going to cover enough ground as regards the protest in the shortest time. So the first topic is the history of protests in Nigeria, and we'll be considering this because Nigeria is not new to. We're not in. We've always had protests here in Nigeria. A lot of times there are protests in Nigeria, and it's only best we see because we see the history of protests in Nigeria because the majority of the time history repeats itself, and if you have a strong understanding of what has happened before, you can probably plan for the future. So, like, there's a saying that goes, if you don't know your past, you don't know where you're going to, and that says a lot. So we'll be looking at history of protests in Nigeria. The next topic will be the protest that changed everything, which is the NSAS protest. We'll just be looking at it and the events that happened, how things changed our lives entirely. Then the next topic is Twitter contributions. Social media was a big deal during the NSAS protest. So we're looking at the contributions of Twitter in particular, because Twitter was a major catalyst in pushing the NSAS protest mainstream. Um, there was literally it's a lot of people say NSAS started on Twitter, and that has its own truth to it. Um, the next topic we're going to be considering is police brutality and extrajudicial killing. So the thing is, This is actually, if not the only reason, but the major reason why the NSAS protests happened in Nigeria. This is the police killings and the brutality and violence that was happening at the time, and people needed to speak up about it. And so we'll be looking at that also. The next topic is the nationwide and foreign adoption of the NSAS protest. It started in a small way, but it spread so fast like wildfire. It was everywhere in different countries in the world and locally in different cities in Nigeria. And so we're going to be considering how that happened also. I'm just shedding lights here and there on all these topics. And last but not the least, 20th of October 2020, the day we won't forget, the 20th of October 2020, the day we won't forget. This is really important because some events happened that day and a lot of people have not recovered from that. The Nigerian society has not recovered from that generally. And yeah, we need to shed some light on what happened that day, which is really important. And so these topics would properly rethink, it will properly give a solid overview of what happened with the protest, the NSAS protest in October 2020. So let's come along. Let's go to the next slide. So first and foremost, we'll be looking at the history of protests in Nigeria. And we're just going to say this, Nigeria is a beautiful country, obviously, but we've had our own struggles and challenges in the past. So Nigeria used to be under the British rule until she gained her independence in 1960 from the British rule. So we've been people accustomed or used to having struggles and fights and trying to make our views heard and our opinions heard by people who are in places of this or positions of power. So that being said, the protests have always been a part of the Nigerian society or a part of the Nigerian people. Nigeria was being ruled for a very long time before she gained independence in 1960 by British colonial masters. I mean, we all know the story about slave trade and how human crimes were committed during that period. We're not going to go into all that details, but there are a series of protests that have happened up until present day, and we're just going to be looking at a few, one or two protests about Nigeria, one or two protests that have happened in the past here in Nigeria. So, like I mentioned before, protests and social activism are not alien to the Nigerian nation, as we have had consecutive and rapid events occur in the past. I mean, we've always had this. We're very strong-willed people, Nigerian people, Africans, Black people are very strong-willed. This is not disrespect to any other race or any other, or not being racial in any way. I just want to state that out. But the Nigerian people are very strong-willed. Always have found a way to air out our opinions, air our views. You can't really box anyone in a Nigerian person, a Black person. Always want to have our opinions heard. And coming from a history, a traumatized history like that, um, whenever there is the slightest amount of oppression or constraints, they always find a way to snap out of it because it's almost like deja vu. It's almost like we're trying to relive what has happened in the past and no one wants to go back to those kind of events. So there have been events that have tested Nigerians' resolve, have resolved to stay together as one nation and people. We're not going to go into the issues of Nigeria as a nation in details, but some of the things that have happened in the past have been so alarming. It's always been a fight for, is Nigeria going to be one, or do we need to go, does the nation need to split up? The people need to go to their way and their different ways, because every time there are always aggrieved parties, and it's it's something that is not new to anybody or any country. I mean, there are lots of countries in the world who have different people, different classes, different tribes or cultures living together, and they always have their own differences. They always have their concerns and their issues that has always followed them from time past. So it's the same thing for Nigeria. It's just that Nigeria has um, a lot more diversification in the sense that there are lots of tribes, and we have some of the largest amounts of tribes, different cultures, different people. It's almost we have over 300 languages here in this country, and so there's bound to be issues and concerns. People are going to raise their voices. Um, Aggrieved parties are going to air out their views, and so this has always been the case. It's not something that just started recently. It's been here for a while, and history has a way of repeating itself. So one of the major protests we're going to be looking at here, sorry, is the Aba Women's Riots, or something people know as the Women's War. So the Aba Women's Riot was a historic catalyst. It's still being mentioned today as a point of reference by international organizations, individuals, foreign and local um, parties. People are always making a reference to this event that happened. So Aba is a city in present-day Abia State, which is found in the southeastern part of Nigeria, and that part of Nigeria is predominantly Igbo, Igbo in tribe and Igbo in language. They are people that are very progressive. They've been one of the major tribes in Nigeria for a very long time. I mean, the Igbo people are very much some of the most progressive people on the planet. And so there was a riot at the time in, in that part of the country. This was way before the amalgamation. This was way before the independence, and there are reasons as to why this riot happened. But it was one of the most shocking riots ever. It sent shockwaves down the spines of the British colonial leaders and rulers. And so, like I said, Nigeria was being ruled, had been ruled by British colonial masters, and this was one of the riots that it was really surprising for a lot of them because they had never seen this kind of uprising, and not to talk of women being those who are spearheading the cause. So it was something that was really important. It was really it was very much fragile, and it's something that's being referred to in present day politics and history. So thousands of Igbo women organized a massive revolt against the policies imposed by the British colonial masters in southeastern Nigeria, touching off the most serious challenge to British rule in the history of the colony. So Britain always have their way of ruling, or have always had their way of ruling. Um, the colonies contribute to the crown. That's always been the rule, I think, to the best of my knowledge. And so there are different colonies in the colonial times, or in the past times. So Nigeria was one of them. There were different countries they had the rule over. But the thing about Nigeria, the thing peculiar to Nigeria was some of the activities that were happening, the kind of people they met when they came to this part of the world. And the Aba Women's Riot was one event that they never forget, or we never forget. It's like it's always been spoken about in present day history and politics. The government took months to put down the women's war. Like I said, it's being called the it's being referred to as the women's war, which is now a historic paradigm of feminist and anti-colonial struggle. So this simply means it's now a reference point, a solid a solid reference point when you're talking about women activity or women participation in politics, feminism, and the way in the contribution of women to governance. and it's also one of the very important pointers in anti-colonial struggle. It's one of the remarkable events that ever happened. The riots began budding. It started coming up on January 1st, 1914, when Lord Lugard, the first Nigerian colonialism administrator, he was the one in charge of the Nigerian colony then for the British rulers. He also went on further to amalgamate the Northern and Southern Protectorate. At the time, um, we didn't have a country called Nigeria. This was because there was a Northern Protectorate and a Southern Protectorate with different ways of leadership, different people, different rulers. So the northern part the of the Northern Protectorate was the northern part of the present-day Nigeria that was north of the River Niger, because the River Niger is one of the major contributing factors to the foundation and history of Nigeria. And then the Southern Protectorate was the southern part of the River Niger. And so there was an amalgamation, a joining of these two parts to form the country we know as Nigeria as of today. We're not going to go into the history books and talk about all that. We're just going to talk about what we're here for, which is um, the history of protests here in Nigeria. So the women's work came about 19 around the time, around the close to the time of the amalgamation, and we were concerned about some certain issues, slavery, and a fight for freedom, the indirect rule which was established by the British government. So British authorities would rule through warrant chiefs in this scheme. What this means is during these times, using the indirect rule, they had warrant chiefs. Warrant chiefs were people who were placed, or administrators who were placed in positions of power to control the masses. And they were also, some of them happened to be, the majority of them happened to be of Nigerian origin. They were indigenes who were picked up and put up in those positions just to help the British. The British colonial masters felt this was a better way to help resolve a lot of issues. But this wouldn't change anything because tensions were already high and people were already concerned about what was happening, what's next, why are they being ruled over by the colonial masters. And there was an innate desire, there was a deep desire in their hearts to seek for freedom. So the women took up this protest and had a massive protest that resulted in loss of life and injuries also. But this also sent a sound warning to the British colonial masters. I mean, they always make mention of this up until present day. Um, so some of the issues that were happening then, which we are going to mention, some of the grievances that different parts, the South and the North in particular, they had their own grievances as regards how things were being done. So the Southerners, that's the Southern Protectorate, the southern part of Nigeria, or present-day Nigeria, who were the most educated, and some at the time they were some of the most skilled, and they are obviously the oil-rich region. They're still the oil-rich. Nigeria is an oil-rich state. Um, so the Southerners were the most educated, the most skilled at the time, and oil-rich region of all of Nigeria were protesting British control because they felt misled and received less for contributing more to the British rule. So just like I said, how colonies are built are in a way that those who are in the colony, they contribute to the crown. So it wasn't any, the case wasn't different in Nigeria's own time. When we were being ruled by the British masters, the country had to contribute to the British rule. And so the Southerners, those who were in the Southern Protectorate or the southern part of Nigeria, felt they were contributing way more and they were being misled and they were receiving less for contributing so much more than the other parts of the country. The thing about this is everybody had their own side to the story, and um, every time this kind of things happen, there's always a side to the story. And even in current day Nigeria, aggrieved parties always have their own sides of the story. Everybody feels some part of the country has wronged them in one way or the other, and they are right in their own from their own point of view. Properly, they are right, and so it's the same thing that's happening in the present day Nigeria, similar to the mixed reactions and detest for the amalgamation by the current day Nigerians. The older generation under the colonial rule shared the same beliefs. So what this means is the same way there's a certain amount of division right now in the present day Nigeria. Lots of people will tell you they feel the country needs to, a lot of people now have the opinion that they feel the country needs to break up. Amalgamation was not the best option at the time. What they mean by this is the joining of the North and South was not a well thought out plan. They have their own reasons or their own points to back these claims, but it's not far from what happened in the older generation. So you see history repeating itself over again, and that's the thing about life and the society in general. A country who pays attention to their history will always see things coming around and would have a way to resolve issues that they have encountered before. But that's not the same way with Nigeria. For some reason, we have lapses and gaps as regards our history and information about our history and being accessible to everyone. Because if everyone knows some certain things that happened in the past, I'm just going to say this, if a lot of records and data and facts are with solid backing, they are being found in, or they're being as they're made accessible to everyone, then some decisions that we find ourselves in, some situations we find ourselves in today wouldn't be occurring again. And even if it occurs, we'll find a way to prefer solutions to whatsoever problem it is. So a lot of people shared the opinion that the unification, that's the joining the country Nigeria, was done for economic reasons rather than proper dialogue and planning. This is the same mindset, and I'm not trying to be divisive here. I mean, you walk the streets of major cities like Lagos, or if you walk the streets of Nigeria, you hear this kind of conversations ongoing. A lot of people are lackadaisical. A lot of people are nonchalant about how the country is. They just tell you everybody needs to go their way because it's even more divisive than before. There was some form of unity, um, but right now it seems like everything is breaking apart, and for some reason we've not yet found we've not yet hacked the right solution to these problems. So also, like I mentioned, both different parties have their different views. So here's the view of the Northern Protectorate. The Northern Nigerian Protectorate had a budget deficit at the time, and the colonial administration sought to use the budget surplus in southern Nigeria to offset this deficit. For the majority of the Nigerian populace, this is still the root of most of the issues in this nation. Because some people feel some parts are leeching on other parts, some parts are being over dependent, and people brag if we step away from this country, would you survive? And different parts with their different stories. The North on this part at the time had agricultural produce, and they still do as a present day, and resources of their own. They still have their own agricultural produce. They're big on that and resources of their own. But they needed means of transportation, commerce, and monetization, and this was booming, this was buzzing in the southern part of Nigeria, and it's the same way as of present day Nigeria. So you see these events keep happening over and over again, and for different countries, they always find a way. Sorry about that. They always find a way to figure out how to solve these issues and put themselves on the right path to development. But some countries do not get it right. Sometimes it takes um, years and decades, and Nigeria happens to fall into that category. Nigeria already had numerous chances to put itself on the course of development, but we've not yet hacked that, and yet found a solid situation. Some of the issues that the nation faces. Um, she's one of the oldest nations in Africa and the world in general, but we've not yet resolved a lot of our issues. The repercussions of the independence uprisings allowed an opportunity to establish some space for the various areas to mature to a point where they might see their differences aside and collaborate. But this is not looking feasible. This is not looking possible. I mean, after independence, we were expected to um, find a way and find a meeting point, meet each other halfway at different parts of the country, and put aside your differences and let's make the country work. But up until today, things have not been sorted out. We're still having all these grievances and people complaining in different parts of the country, different parts of the society. And so this makes us wonder what's then, what next? And if you have this as a mindset, since we are creating this background or this foundation um, of events that have happened um, pre-colonial times, during colonial times, um, before, during independence, the independence uprisings, the civil war. Nigeria had the civil war in which the southeastern part in particular wanted to break out of the country because they had issues, they aired out a lot of concerns. They still do as of today because there is a movement for that. And I mean, we're not going to go into details about if that is right or what is happening as regards that, but you can see that all these things have been happening, and NSAS is not NSAS is an infant of that has come of age because of all the events that have happened in the past. I mean, all these things have led to this point where we had the NSAS protests. So, like I said, however, we squandered social reconstruction initiatives. Like I mentioned before, when countries face this kind of issues, it's really important for a lot of them to come up with strategies or initiatives that can help resolve or bring about social reconstruction in the society. And Nigeria had had a lot of these opportunities. Some of them we mentioned here are the Aburi conference and the Okuta panel. The Aburi conference came shortly, was during the um, Nigerian Biafra War period, which is the civil war, because a part of the country, which is the southeast, wanted to break up. And this conference was to try to solve what the issue was, what the issues were. But still, we are still in a situation um, that a lot of people are not finding okay. A lot of people have expressed their concerns and their disregard for um, the current happenings here in Nigeria. The Okuta panel was something that happened during this democratic age, not too long ago, not up to 10 years ago. If um, my mind doesn't play me, I think it's not too long ago. So the Okuta panel was something that was coined or that was formed for every party who had issues, the southern parts, different sections of the southern part of Nigeria, different sections of the northern part of Nigeria, the middle belt, the western part, the eastern part. Everybody had to come and talk about their issues or what they felt was being um, done wrong to them. And these events presented opportunities to resolve not just political, socio-economic, ethnic issues, but also pressing national grievances by various parties. It is now a scenario that has turned out, right now, it has now turned to be, it seems like it's a mixture between oil and water, and the scenario in Nigeria, which is immiscible, meaning they don't go together. And this has had a ripple effect um, from independence down to the different military coup, down to um, civil war, down to a bad or a charred, a burnt democratic failure, which the country seems to be like right now. Um, so this history of all these events shows you that Nigeria has always had issues. Nigerians always had issues with a lot of things, and they always find a way to protest about it. Also, and from some of the issues, some of the protests have always been a part of the Nigerian society, strike actions, There's a saying: if you want the government to hear you, just go on a strike. And that's a bad thing to say. That's a sad thing to take note of. Because I mean, why would the government not want to serve the people that put them in the place of power? It says a lot. So nevertheless, there have always been strike actions in the Nigeria public sector. It has become a major source of concern because everyone feels that's the only time the government will hear you. That's the real weapon in the hands of civil servants. And the Nigerian Labour Congress always threatens for strike, which is the apex body of civil servants here in Nigeria. Also, sometimes you hear of the ASU strike, which is the apex body for academic staffs in universities here in Nigeria, and this impedes the growth and development of the nation. And it's not changing anytime soon. It doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon, and it affects everyone, regardless of the social class, regardless of the tribe, regardless of the language or the culture. It affects everyone, no matter where you are, no matter the part of the country you're located in. And this is something that has to change. So we'll be looking at the protests. We've had a look at some of the protests that happened in the past history of protests. We mentioned the Aba Women's Riot, numerous protests, independence, the Civil War, all the things that have happened. Nigeria has had a bumpy ride. It's been challenging and really difficult. It still feels really strenuous for the country. She's going through a lot. But now we're going to be looking at the protest that changed everything, which is the End Sars protest. And we thought it best to capture some screenshots of tweets that happened during this time, which you can see on the screen on the presentation. And lots of people, it was something that happened so fast. One day you have youths sleeping in front of public buildings trying to air their views. Another day you have them storming the streets of major cities in Lagos and in different parts of the world, major cities in Nigeria also, and different parts of the world. So one day it's just happening online, and another day everyone is on the streets. People are being are angry, people are frustrated, and they're being led by lots of people. They're sharing their concerns. People are also having fun whilst at it. I mean, it was a mix of a lot of emotions, anger, a sense of belonging, harmony. Nigerian youths were really commended, like they did amazing job. It was peaceful protests on the youth's part. The government decided to to change the narrative, which they always do. They always, when it comes to resolving issues, the government always relies on force or use of corruption or corrupt practices to resolve issues, which is a sad thing. I mean, it has nothing has changed. Why are these people? Why are we having um, this repeated, or it's like a rinse and repeat scenario? Someone comes into power, people come into places or positions of power, and they do almost worse than the previous person. And so we're going to be looking at the protest that changed everything. Um, so EndSARS is a social revolution in Nigeria that consists of a series of huge rallies against police brutality and killings. The major reason was why the EndSARS started was the issues of police brutality and killings. Um, Everyone who has had an opportunity to live or visit Nigeria would tell you for a fact that they have had or they've either had encounters with NSAS, and SARS officials, pardon me, or they have heard stories and narrations or narratives about um, the SARS activities here in Nigeria. SARS is a unit of the Nigeria Police Force. This is a specialized unit. It stands for the Specialized Force or the Special Unit against special anti-robbery and kidnapping force. Um, they were specially coined or formed to tackle some of the issues that were happening in Nigeria, some of the crimes that were going on, majorly robbery, and the kidnapping crimes that were going on at a time in present-day Nigeria. So the people were concerned that those who were being appointed, those who were given responsibilities to take care and protect the people, had turned out to be the exact replica of the problem, and they turned out to be um, the robbers, they turned out to be the kidnappers. I mean, it now seems like it was a crime to be a young person in Nigeria, to be someone with a tattoo. There was a profiling that was really, really unpalatable. It was events happened that were so disgusting. Things that were against human rights. Things that were people were being brutalized. People were being killed. People were being shot in cold blood. People were being arrested and left in prison cells to rot for a long time. It still happens. There were lots of injustice, and these people felt these SARS officials, just like every arm of force in this country, um, from the military down, they always feel since they have this, pardon me, since they have the authority and the backing of the government, and they own or they are armed with firearms, they feel they are untouchable. They feel they are above the law. Some politicians use them to their personal advantage, for vendetta purposes, and it went on and on. Young people were at the forefront of this. They were receiving the full force of these problems because Nigeria, not only are we a very young nation, we are one of the youngest nations in the world. Also, we have a large population of youth. Also, um, it seemed like because a lot of bad eggs in the society were involved in some ill activities, cyber crime and the likes. The SARS officials took advantage of this and they were profiling a lot of people. They were doing they were committing crimes against humanity, killing people, brutalizing people, harassing people, and it seemed like there was a problem if you had locks, you had dreadlocks, if you had some type of hair, if you sprayed your hair. Um, it was also a crime if you owned an iPhone. I mean, if you have issues, if you're trying to do proper investigation, you need to have some skills, you need to have technology involved. If you feel someone has committed a crime, even if the person is a criminal, you have to try the person in the court's house, and you have to there are processes to all this. But the Nigerian justice system continues to fail its people, and this is something that um, resulted in pent-up anger. Lots of people were frustrated, and it blew out of proportion. Um, so the demonstrations started as far back as 2017, and it became a movement on Twitter, and where Nigerian people are very much tech savvy, and Nigerian youths are very tech savvy. So when things happen, everyone pops up their phone, takes a picture of things happening. We've grown to become that kind of people because I mean that's the only way we have. That's the only way we can protect ourselves since the government doesn't really protect the people that much, isn't performing their basic responsibility of security. So people are always popping up their phone, taking pictures. So whenever someone gets stopped by a SARS official, I mean, you can be someone who lives in the UK and you just come back for the Christmas holidays and you're back in the country for the holidays to see your family and to make connections, to have a good time, and then you get stopped by SARS officials on the road, and 1 minute you're happy, the next minute you're scared because they could just shoot you and leave you there in cold blood and nothing is going to happen. And so this went on, and lots of people, a group of young people started the movement asking that this unit in the Nigerian police force be banned, they should be disbanded, everything about them should be scrapped entirely. And the government didn't want to listen, and so the protest went on and on. But it started in 2017 as a Twitter movement, with the hashtag #EndSARS to mandate that the federal government of Nigeria dismantle the Sars unit. And we're going to talk about the Sars unit, the police unit in details in the course of this presentation. Um, so ever since the process has evolved to also include appeals for transparent and responsible government. So the people took it upon themselves that the youth decided, since we can demand for the end of SARS, let's also go one step, do ourselves one more favor to demand for a more transparent and responsible governance. And this is where the government felt really bad, like it was striking a nail at the heart of piercing a nail at the heart of the government. Because I mean, if you're an elected office holder, or you are appointed office holder, whatever positions you find yourself as a leader of this country, it's your responsibility and duty to serve the people of the country, to do things right. It's so hard for the government to do things right, and you can see during the NSAS protest, um, use of force, killings. There were people that were still killed during the NSAS protest. I mean, people were protesting to stay alive, and you were still killing them. Police officers were killing them, and denials, allegations of here everywhere, arrests, and kudos to the Nigerian youths. They formed a lot of organizations. There was this unity for a short period to fight a common enemy. We all presented a common front against the issues that were disturbing the Nigerian youth. As far as protests go, the NSAS protests in Nigeria and abroad set a high level in every aspect. Whatever way you look at it, the NSAS protest was, it raised the bar, and the government knew that, okay, this generation, you can't mess with them. They're being referred to as the Sorosuke generation, which means speak up. Sorosuke is a slang that has become very much popular in the Nigerian environment and parlance. It's like speaking up. It stands for speak up, which means speak up against injustice, speak up against crime, speak up against bad governance, speak up against corruption, speak up against police brutality. Um, and so this generation of Nigerian youths are not scared for any reason. Um, so the wave of righteous anger kindled again in October 3rd, 2020, after a video showed where two young men, I remember seeing that video, were being brutalized and one of them shot on the streets. And this video went viral. I mean, it started on Twitter. You can literally see, if you follow the action, then you can literally see the tweets, the retweets, the hashtags. People were really angry because it had gone over. It has gotten to an extent where it happens and nothing will be done about it. The perpetrators of the crimes will be brought to law. The police doesn't investigate. Nothing is being done. Someone loses a brother, someone loses a sister, and that's the case. It ends there. So people were really pissed off about this, and everyone decided to air their views. Enough was enough, and this went viral on Twitter. So talking about Twitter contributions, Twitter was a major force. Speaking about Twitter, Twitter was a major force in pushing the NSAS protest online. A lot of things happened. Contributions, coordinations were being done via Twitter. This was really crazy because there were lots of protest centers in different parts of Nigeria. Celebrities, leaders, young leaders, musicians, people who had large following and followers came out in support. Institutions, organizations all came out in support of the youth who were claiming and who were crying out to be heard, and that this unit of the police force be disbanded and be scrapped entirely. So we're going to be looking at Twitter contributions, and Twitter was a catalyst for the widespread of the protests worldwide. Um, like I said before, Nigeria is a very tech-savvy nation. The Nigerian youths love technology. It's one of the things. If I always say this, if any good thing is happening in this country, it's being pioneered by the youth. This is not a joke. It's being pushed by a lot of young people, and like I said, Twitter is also something that's dear to the he has a large following here in Nigeria. We are very, very passionate about. It's almost you being an activist. It's almost like you being an activist without being on the streets. And we took advantage of this way before people started coming out to the streets. So we were always sharing tweets. People started sharing their experiences about or their encounters with the Sars officials online. Um, Data was being collected, and videos um, were being were being created, pictures were being taken, a large pool of data was being collected and information, and this was being spread in real time. Once you meet or you have an encounter or you meet a SARS official on the road, people were obligated to take pictures and send across, and this went on over and over again. Tweets were being generated, engagements, threads. I mean, the tweets generated had gotten to over 2 million tweets in a day, in less than 24 hours, when this protest started. And the protests and protesters have been admired for their courage, the modus operandi, the way they went about the activities and the peaceful actions. It was a peaceful protest by the protesters, by the youths. Um, the government only just found a way to hijack the protest using thuggery, um, um, lies, corruption, um, killings. I mean, that's the only way, that's the only language they know. And this is sad coming from people who we elected into positions of power. Um, so Twitter was a major issue. Days went past and it clearly outlined a realistic panorama of the depravity of the Nigerian government and elected officials. So what this means is that as days went by, people kept on coming out, and protest march, like people were in the streets, walking the streets, like you can see in the picture. People were walking, people were airing their views, holding placards, and shouting at the top of their voice. At some point in time, the protesters dismissed all leaders who tried to come and negotiate with them. At the time, I can remember an incident that happened where some governors, like the Lagos State governor, tried to address the NSAS protesters in front of the government house in Ikeja here in Lagos, and they didn't give ear to his to what he had to say. They literally dismissed him. It was a thing of embarrassment, and not just only in Lagos State, in different states in Nigeria, and also it kept on growing, and it sent a loud message to the Nigerian youth that these people do not care about you, the government officials. They literally do not care about you. They're all about their own personal reasons and whatsoever they deem fit. And it's a sad thing to behold, because we know better, we deserve better. And so what was being protested against became the plight of anyone who supported or participated in protest. Some people were some protesters were shot and killed. People who were unarmed were being fired at with guns, with live ammunition, with tear gas. Some were being arrested. Some thugs were being paid to come and disrupt the protests. They were beating up people, um, brutalizing people here and there, and this further spurred or gave more spirit to the Nigerian youth to speak up more, and this protest went on for days and for weeks. Also, one of the unique features of this protest was the sidestepping of traditional media, and we thought it wise to explain this here to put this also into consideration. Um, Traditional media, which is the usual media houses like TV stations, radio stations, newspaper, media houses, they didn't contribute so much to the NSAS protest, and this was baffling, because I mean, this was a cause that was being fought by Nigerian people for the Nigerian people. Sorry about that. for the Nigerian people. And so it said a lot that rather than our local media houses to help in sending this message across, they were being they were not cooperative enough. Some of them, yes, a lot of the media houses over here in Nigeria are government owned, or they have some form of government interest in them. So I mean, this was really alarming because um, we were hearing majority of the true parts, the true stories behind the NSAS protest were being aired on international TV stations like the CNN, the BBC, and the likes. And social media was just the major force pushing this. So imagine if we were living in times when there was no social media or Twitter was not made available. I mean, this would have literally gone south for the Nigerian youth, and this would have literally been, been dumped down or just be something that wouldn't see the light of the day before it began. So this was really, really important to make mention of. The events spewing within the country showed a flagrant disregard for the unequal reliance on mainstream media. People now had it in their mind that, man, these guys wouldn't help us. We need to help ourselves. These people that they are not, they are dead. They're not going to help us carry out um, this protest. They're not going to help us chart this course. We need to do what we need to do for ourselves. And so demonstrations against the Sars became a popular issue on Twitter. People now decided to take this upon themselves and use social media to the best of their advantage. And a hashtag NSAS was used repetitively by a lot of people in October, up in the month of October, and in different countries, people were spreading information, um, sending out cries, tagging accounts, looking for celebrities who were going to help them air their views. Just spreading information, forming, writing threads, sharing, retweeting, liking, and all that. So it was different from the normal way of doing things. Because um, if we were up to the traditional media, the NSAS protest would not see the light of the day. So the NSAS protests have drawn worldwide sympathy and support. It drew worldwide sympathy and support from some of the major leaders in the world, UN Secretary, lots of people, um, leaders of different countries in the UK, like the UK, the US, Germany, France, different countries, leaders, celebrities, they were all expressing their support because people were showing live and real-time information, videos, pictures, data about things that were happening in Nigeria, that the police, this unit of police was committing crimes against the Nigerian people. It almost was like a genocide. For several days in October, the hashtag NSAS was the #1 trending topic on global Twitter. Um, Jack Dorsey, who is the CEO of Twitter, always Twitter knows Nigeria loves Twitter. Nigeria has a large Twitter following, um, and it's one of the largest on the African planet, on the African continent. Sorry. So we used this to our advantage during the NSAS protest. People were always protesting. People came out in mass, but they also took the protest online as much as offline. The online protest actually sparked the online movement, and Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter, launched a special emoji for the movement. And lots of celebrities from international music stars, which we're going to be talking about also during the course of this discussion, this presentation, music stars, Beyonce, actors, and international organizations, Amnesty International, the United Nations, all these people, they aired their views, they were concerned about. It was something that you couldn't go through 2020 without knowing about the NSAS protest. I mean, the Black Lives Matter protest have been a thing, but the NSAS protest was so um, resounding. It was something that people never saw coming, and it came at a fast pace, and it took everywhere by the storm. And Nigeria being the largest population of of the largest black population of people on planet Earth, um, had the numbers to go with this, and so social media was buzzing every single day. And so the Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, launched a special emoji for the movement. They also tweeted his support, and not only him, other people, but Twitter was a major front, a major ground for the Nigerian youth to express their opinions without being without being coerced or without any form of um, interruption. So I feel that's also the reason why we have a Twitter ban presently. I mean, the country, the impunity speaks whenever you see it, and people feel once they have the power, they can do whatsoever they think. I mean, I can remember this present government trying to win the hearts of Nigerians, coming up with lots of promises, even the president crying at some point in time just to get into power. But now it seems like everyone has forgotten about what's happening in the country. I mean, they can always do better. There's always better, and it feels like we've gone 10 steps behind. Um, this is the fact. This is the truth about events that are happening right now in Nigeria. Um, so you can see here on the screen here, um, Jack tweeting in support of the NSAS, the Feminist Coalition, and big shout out to them. They were one of the groups that helped in organizing people during the NSAS protest. I mean, you can see that during this protest, things could actually be done. It's just that some politicians and the leaders didn't want to do the things. It was not so expensive to it was not. It didn't require $5 billion to provide um, healthcare services, legal services. People who were being locked up themselves were being freed by pro bono lawyers. Lawyers who came out and just said we're offering our services for anyone who gets locked up or who gets who is in a problem with SARS. If you find yourself in a compromising situation with SARS, or you find yourself in a place where you need help, and just call these numbers. There are toll-free numbers that people could call, and people were sending out this information not only via Twitter. We were calling, checking up. People were stepping into the streets. If you go for a protest, make sure you go with someone and make sure you check in on that person. Check your movements. The Nigerian youths rather exhibited commendable um, um, organization. They did some things that we had never witnessed before, and that's why the protest um, gained so much momentum at different protest grounds in Lekki, in different states in Nigeria, on the island, mainland, in Lagos. People came out in mass and they were having fun. Services were being provided by the youth for the youth. The youth had to provide security for themselves since the government couldn't provide this security for the protesters. The protesters, people were donating, and here you can see Jack, the owner of Twitter, telling people to donate to help end SARS. And this sent a resounding. This made us understand. This made the Nigerian youth understand that all this can be done. We deserve better, and the Nigerian youth deserve better. It's just a case of impunity, wickedness, corruption, where people know what they need to do, but they do not do it, and for reasons best known to them, these leaders do not want to do whatsoever um, that was required of them. And even after the protest, the long protest, we still can see it in present day Nigeria. Up until now, we can still see the disregard for human life, um, nonchalance towards governments, lackadaisical approach towards carrying out their responsibilities and duties. But during the EndSARS protests, organizations like the Feminist Coalition and the likes organized this protest peacefully. Anyone who needed medical services had numbers to reach out to. I remember a very popular doctor on Twitter, Akoko Doctor, who um, who was in charge of that area. He was fostering, pushing, helping people get medical services, spreading information about how to stay safe during the NSAS protest, take care of yourself if you had contact with tear gas, what to do, what not to do. You can see it was so obvious way back then. Um, there are videos online that you can also watch to further buttress these points, to further understand what we are talking about. So other politicians and celebrities use the hashtag or mention the trend in support of the protest or to call for an end to the government's crackdown on demonstrators. The government, rather than doing the right thing, like I said again, they decided to crack down use force. That's the only language they think um, is good, is useful, or the only language that can resolve issues, which is wrong entirely. And why would you attack peaceful protesters who just want to air out their views? I mean, these protesters were even having parties. We were having parties at protest joints, at protest points and centers, and people just located their protest centers, places to charge your phone, charge your devices, your whatever you needed. Food was being provided for the protesters by the youths themselves. People were donating to help the End SARS movement. So this was a commendable period, and information was being um, passed through Twitter majorly. So we'll go to the next one, which is police brutality and extrajudicial killings. I'm talking about this. This is the major issue why the NSAS protest. I mean, it evolved into it morphed or metamorphized into um, also calling out the government for bad leadership and governance. But this was the major issue that kicked off the NSAS protest. Um, and we're going to be talking about police brutality. It's become a normal thing for people to have bad encounters with the police. The Nigerian police and other forces or units in the Nigerian society need to do better. They've always found a way to either brutalize people, kill people, be violent against people. It's almost like if you own a uniform, if you're in the force, whatever force you're in, if it's the military or the police force or just the civic security forces that we have over here. Um, Once you own a uniform and you have a gun, it seems like you're above the law, which is wrong. This is entirely wrong. And a lot of people have been on the bad side of these stories. People have narrated their ordeals with the Nigerian police force and the SARS unit in particular. So in times past, there have been allegations, stories, and investigations into the activities and crimes of the Federal Special Armed Robbery and Kidnapping Squad, popularly known for short as SARS. So the SARS stands for Special Armed Robbery and Kidnapping Squad. They were, like I said before, they were initially formed as a unit to help tackle the crime, the high crime rates at the time, the issues of crime, kidnapping, um, robbery, and some other crimes in the society. But now it's now a team of, they're now a ghost of themselves. I mean, the unit has been disbanded, but you can still see some of their activities ongoing. They were disbanded because a lot of allegations and stories, investigations were going into that unit. Um, and sorry, and this would have not been the case if the youths didn't cry out, if there had not been constant reports about their activities. And why wait to have a large amount of reports, large amount of killings before you look into something? The government should have done this a long time ago. There's a lot of people called out for um, the scrapping of that unit a long time ago, way before the NSAS protest started. So there were allegations. I remember stories of people who were locked up for no reason, and when they get locked up, they go missing, and people were missing. People are being arrested for trivial reasons. Um, it was a thing of anguish, to be very honest. People there were stories of um, people having police stations having shallow graves all around the compounds or the premises of the police station where they kill people and just bury them. and these people, these supposed criminals, these um, people who were arrested or put in jail, these young people, young men and women who were arrested and put in jail, were not properly tried. They've not gone through the due process in the justice system. And Nigerian justice system is dilapidated. It's crumbled. It's decayed, to say the least. Because a lot of things go on, and um, we move on from there. People are arrested and they stay in cells and jails for years without being tried in front of a judge or a court room. So that's a bad thing. That's these are some of the things that average Nigerian youth faces, and I mean it happens from time to time. It's happened over and over and over again. And there are investigations, allegations. There were times when people mentioned locations. There was a river per se in a part of Nigeria where dead bodies were being dumped, and people kept on wondering: are these not children of people? Are these not brothers and sisters of people who are looking for their family members? And were these people really tried? Who are these people that were being killed? Sars officials were just going on rampage. If you speak anything about, if they stop you on the road and they see you with a laptop, and it's a crime to have an Apple laptop because they feel you shouldn't own the amount of money to own this kind of gadgets. I mean, these are basic things for someone who's in who not everyone is into crime. I mean, I know there's a high rate of cybercrime in different parts of the world. There are different parts of there are different countries that have their own um, um, bad eggs. And these countries, they do not kill these people on the spot, or they do not arrest people or brutalize. Their police officers do not brutalize the citizens. Rather, they try them, they investigate. If you have concerns about someone, if you have allegations against a certain person, if you feel someone is a criminal, you follow due process and try these people in court. But the Nigerian police and the SAS unit were taking the laws into their hands. And so you can see here in these pictures we have here, you see someone who's holding a placard saying iPhone, laptops, styled hair, and living fresh isn't a crime. Stop killing Nigerians. SARS are authorized criminals. You could see one day with a tattoo and they think you're a criminal. You could just be coming back from um, um, somewhere in the night. You probably went to go have a good time at night, and they take advantage of that. They seize your cars, seize your gadgets. If you speak too much, if you try to confront them and ask them reasons for that, people get shot, people get killed, and this was going on and on. And you can see the frustration on people's face. And the Nigerian police has continued to maintain the foundation of force and total allegiance to the state, to the Nigerian state, as inherited from colonialism. So you can see it's a repeated pattern. It still shows, it goes on to show that what has always been the case, like when we had the Warrant Chiefs who had support for who were in allegiance with the colonial masters. It's the same way that things are being played out right now. The Nigerian police um, are even used for personal reasons, and police officers are used for personal reasons of politicians and leaders of the Nigerian state. For personal reasons best known to them, the Nigerian police force abuses and violates Nigerians' fundamental human rights, tarnishing the police force's reputation. Every single day we have reports and stories of someone arrested illegally or someone killed without being tried, someone being brutalized. You slap someone without even telling the person what the person's crime is. And it's either they're trying to um, extort money from the person, or they're trying to do it for their personal reasons, or they don't have solid facts as regards who is what's the crime the person has committed. And even if the person has committed the crime, again, you need to try the person through the justice system. So top ranking officers in SARS like Mr. James Waffle. James Waffle was one officer that was being brought into limelight a lot because he committed a lot of crimes. And to jokingly, this might sound really funny. It's also very alarming. He was at the time, um, up until now, he was an aide to a Nigerian political office holder, a state governor, as a matter of fact, and people came up with their stories about their encounters with this corrupt officer who killed lots of people, and he's amongst the countless amounts of bad eggs and members of the special units and the police in general who feel they are untouchable due to the arms they carry and support from the government. I mean, anyone who commits a lot of crime, the government feels this person is some politician takes up the person finds his way into a place of leadership or holding a position of power, and this is really sad. This has always been a case of harassment and abuse of power, resulting in deaths, illegal threats, illegal arrests, and security threats to the Nigerian public. No one feels safe. The people who were given the sole responsibility to keep the society safe became the threats to the society. And so rather than channel skill, wit power, training, and technology towards keeping the people safe, it has become a case of police becoming a social epidemic they were formed to address. So rather than using their skill, use of technology, things have changed right now. People have state-of-art technology that helps them resolve cases, criminal cases, find criminals, find the right person that committed the crime, and make the person face the wrath of the law. But that's not the same case in Nigeria. First of all, this the police is they are ill, they have low funding. Some of them do not get paid. So when you do not take care of these units, or you do not take care of some people, they take away from the people. When you don't take care of the police force, they they portray or they express their grief and their disappointment, their anger on the Nigerian people. That's why there are lots of ill crimes being committed by the police, bribery, corruption, killings, um, vandalisms, and violence here and there by the Nigerian police force. And so this says a lot. They need to move from that narrative. There has to be an entire overhaul of the system from top-ranking officials to the lowest cadet officers. And this is really important. And this was what the NSAS was all about. Now we look at the nationwide and foreign adoption of the NSAS protest. I mean, it started in a small way from Twitter, but then it grew into a nationwide protest with lots of people leading protests and lots of the youth coming out in mass on the streets to protest the NSAS, to protest and show solidarity with the NSAS movement. So protests were held in major foreign cities in solidarity. Like you see in this picture, this is a picture of a protest that was held in the UK, and you can see prominent Nigerians like Whiskey, who is a Grammy-winning award Nigerian superstar, um, doing amazing work. And you can see him in the picture in one of the protests in London with Dr. Dipo, who is a renowned education expert, and this was in UK, and just like in different cities in foreign cities, lots of Nigerians held protests in solidarity. Even up until today, some people still show their solidarity and their support. I mean, SARS is and the end SARS protest is a mindset. It has turned into a mindset. It's not just an event that happened right now. People now know they can hold the government accountable for everything and for every single activity or service, every um, wrong that happens in this country. So quite a lot of Nigerians have lost their constitutional rights to speech and liberty as a result of police actions. Some people come into Nigeria and they tell you their ordeal. Some people who are visiting, some people who live, some people who have left Nigeria also. Some people who live in Nigeria tell you there are lots of stories about their ordeals and their experiences with police force. or police officers. And visitors and those returning to see family also have a lot of stories about their bad encounters during the protests, and even recently, lots of Nigerians in diaspora entered the streets of numerous cities, and international bodies like Amnesty International, ICC, expressed great concern about human rights violation. Um, I don't think there's an international celebrity that didn't tweet in support of the End SARS protest. I can't really remember if anyone did, but all of them, all um, celebrities, international organizations, bodies, leaders, presidents, um, anyone who had, who, anyone, everyone literally knew what was happening at the time, and they tweeted the support. Um, Beyonce, Rihanna, and Kanye West, and LeBron James, um, Mark Zuckerberg, all of them tweeted lots of Bill Gates, lots of them, Jeff Bezos, ICC, and the United Nations, Amnesty International, um, all tweeted in support of the SARS movement because this was something you could see real-time pictures, real-time videos of things that were happening, people being shot in the streets, killed, police brutalizing people during the End SARS protests. On the streets of Lagos, London, New York, Enugu, Johannesburg, Sydney, Berlin, Abuja, etc., Nigerians and Nigerian supporters sent a resounding message that transitioned from the pioneer demand for an end to police brutality, hereby growing to become a full-blown outrage against bad government or government corruption, bad leaders, and abuse of power. And you can see in this picture, the Nigerian, the queer community also came out, and those who feel um, they have been, they have been suffering from stigmatization and the likes because of their same-sex um, interests. They came out also, literally everyone who who was a Nigerian or who supports Nigeria, irrespective of your class, your location, your ideology, your mindset, the youths in particular all came out to talk about um, this issue, calling the government to scrap this unit and also holding the government further accountable for not carrying out their responsibilities for bad government and corruption and abuse of power by the government also. So this happened in different locations. I mean, it's all over. It was buzzing, social media was buzzing, TV station, radio stations, international and global and locally were buzzing with this information and the news surrounding the End SARS protests. So we'll go to the 20th of October 2020, the day we won't forget. And this is this is a remarkable day. It's something that changed. It has changed a lot of lives, a lot of families. People went through a lot. People are still going through the trauma and the side effects of not only the NSAS protest, but this particular day, the 20th of October 2020. And you can see on the background of this picture, of the picture on the screen, is the map of is a flag of Nigeria, and it's drenched in blood, human blood, and this happened. It's, a lot of people. There's a lot of conspiracy to cover up the events of the 20th of October. But it's for a fact that it happened, and there are also information and data, solid facts out there, not just by local, um, not just by local bodies, but international bodies who investigated what happened, what transpired that day, and have put out reports saying there were crimes against humanity committed that day by the Nigerian government and Nigerian officers, officers of the Nigerian army in particular. And so we're going to be looking at the 20th of October 2020. won't forget. Um, uh, so on this day, I'll give a background. So there were lots of locations in Lagos, for instance, that held rallies and protests about the NSAS. There were lots of NSAS protest centers. The one very important protest center was the Lekki Toll Gates Center, and today it has become a landmark because of what happened there. The protesters were killed, shot at, some were brutalized, some were arrested by the Nigerian army, and these were on orders by they were acting based off orders from some leaders of the Nigerian government. And although the Nigerian government denies this up until today, um, we have solid facts. There is an Instagram live video, as a matter of fact. Events were being covered on Instagram Live by some individuals, some Nigerian youths, caring Nigerian youths who were there present at the Lekki toll gate, one of which was DJ Switch, who has maximum respect from every Nigerian youth right now for what she did. There was a live, I mean, um, you can't fake a live Instagram feed. Can't speak that, especially when things were happening at that pace. You see the gunshots. I mean, it's all over the internet. Lots of information, lots of findings gathered by CNN, international organizations, also people who have mutual interests in the well-being of the Nigerian state. Um, Published information, data, local individuals and organizations also took part in this. So the government and all those who are the only duty to protect and heed the cry of its citizens are nonchalant and keep fooling the people of Nigeria. Um, the protests were ongoing peacefully, and people were just calling for this unit of the police force to be scrapped, but the government sought um, thought the best way to react. Always use force. They always that's always been their own mindset. Divide and conquer. They also tried using thugs. They also wanted to find a way to look for leaders, which thankfully the protest was being led by everybody, and we didn't have leaders. The NSAS movement didn't have leaders. Let's say it was led by everybody. Everyone was a leader in their own rights. Every single Nigerian, um, those who tried to hijack it were being pushed aside and were warned sternly to avoid hijacking the protest. So it was an open and free protest without the protesters causing any harm or any havoc. But the Nigerian government changed the narrative um, and found a way to use corruption to stall or stop the protests, and also a bit of violence and killings happened over the course of this protest. Now it was just not just mere social media or Twitter banter or rants. The Nigerians of today, especially the youths, had enough, and were brave enough to say it. This current generation of Nigerian youths won't just sit back and let you do whatsoever you want with them or push over. I mean, they will always say it's not always been the same with previous generation. I mean, previous generation had a way, just like we spoke about when we talked about the history of protests in Nigeria. They had a way of airing out their own views, but current generation are more open. They are very bold and brave. There's a saying that goes. There's a saying here that goes, all die and I die," which means death is death, no matter how it happens. So that's the mindset of the Nigerian youth right now. Enough is enough. We just want a better life for ourselves and the future generations coming, and so they are not scared in any way. And so the Lekki tailgate has become an iconic spot. This is the Lekki tailgate you can see in the picture. Um, has become an iconic spot in Nigerian history. The toll gate was blocked off during the NSAS protest to drive a message deep into the heart of the government. Lekki toll gate is on the Lekki Expressway, connecting the major parts of the Lagos Island, and as such creates a lot of revenue for the state government. And that being said, when this place was blocked off for weeks, days, weeks, the government felt bad about it. It was almost like a slap on their face, especially the Lagos state government. And Lagos obviously contributes one of the highest amounts of internally generated revenue to the Nigerian government, the federal government. So I think it also affected them entirely. It was a serious issue, and they couldn't get the youths off the toll gates. We literally owned the toll gates. People, events were happening there, and people came out every day at night, um, in the day to chant NSAS to block up this area, and and since they were tampering with the government money, it was really something that was distasteful to the government. And so they sent on the 20th of October um, um, a, a company of army officials were sent to the Lekki toll gate, and prior information was sent out. Some people left, some people were bold enough to stay back, some protesters were bold enough to stay back and still um, air their views, and it resulted in the loss of lives, killing of some people, shooting of some people, as well as arrest and brutalization of people who were the Nigerian youths who were at the Lekki toll gate um, that night on the 20th of October 2020. And the government still claims that nothing happened that day. And this it sounds really it sounds like a joke, to be honest, because I mean there are videos, um, there's content to back this this event that happened. Um, and their coverages, video coverages, narrations, live events, data, information that's out there to further explain the happenings of that day. But it was a sad day. It is still a sad day in Nigerian history because, I mean, we've never seen such blatant disregard for human life by the government in a long time. And this said a lot. This was a very um a it was a bad time. It's really a bad time. It was really a bad time for people. A lot of people um didn't believe what was happening, that people would actually kill um their fellow Nigerians. I mean, even if you're given an order by a security head or um a government official, why would you take out that order um, on harmless protesters who are unarmed, and you're shooting at them? You were shooting, people were being shot at, and people died as a result of that. Some people were arrested, and still the officials prevented, rather, they prevented healthcare services from reaching those who were wounded, um, who were shot at, and they left the place. Um, um, they left the place in in shame, to be honest, because I mean, everyone should be ashamed of themselves if they took part in something like this. It's really sad to remember. It was really a dark time, a dark night in Nigeria's history. Um, yeah, so on the 20th of October 2021, soldiers attacked protesters. During the protest, the government used thugs, ill motives, propaganda, and every measure possible to crack down on protests. Soldiers were deployed to the Lekki toll gate, and it ended up in being a bloody night. It was a bad day for the Nigerian youth. It still is a bad day. In conclusion, lives have changed, brothers and sisters have been lost, um, traumas have been experienced, and also new chapters have been written in history books by the Nigerian youth. It shows that there's an ounce of hope. Um, the Nigerian youths are not cowards. We never backed down. We made our voices heard. They did the right thing. which is really important. So it's okay to speak up against impunity, speak up against bad governance, speak up against corruption and greed, speak up against injustice, speak up against police brutality. And I'm really glad that we've had this session. Yeah, so we're sending out, we just decided to mention some names, and the Nigerian youth in general who contributed to this movement. These are just a few of the names. There are lots of people, we can't even write all their names. There are lots of people who contributed to the Sars movement. The Nigerian youths, big love and respect to everyone who was part of the Sars protest and still supports the movement, because it's not, it's still in play. It's still in play. The Nigerian youth, some names here are very familiar. Aisha Yusufu, she has been a pioneer of activism here in Nigeria. Um, David Hundeyin, Akoko Dr. Twitter, Renu Savi, Mochivius, amazing lawyer, Tola, Macaroni, Mr. Macaroni, the ever-brave Mr. Macaroni, Aroms, Tech Community, Femco. I mean, there are lots of people with lots of names we can't even mention right now. But these people were outstanding in their service to the Nigerian youth and making sure the NSAS protest was a reality. So with this, we come to the end of this session. I hope you had a good one, a good time. We'll be rolling out some information, documents, a deck for you if you want to, if you're interested in having information, having this data for yourself. We'll be rolling it out soon enough. And also keep your fingers crossed, because we'll be having other discussions highlighting some other parts of not just the Nigerian economy, but also the events surrounding Africa, Nigeria, different parts of the world. Some of our projects that are ongoing, and we just want to have this constant information out, and and hopefully you enjoy it as much as we enjoy putting them together. And yes, my name is Ikechukwu, and I'm really excited to have done this. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I know it's been a long one, but I'm really excited for all the feedback that has been coming in. And see you next time. Love and peace. Bye. So we will end now. Bye, guys.